NFL season. No, it's not this weekend. We have not been drinking, but he is Teddy Covers. I am Joe Raineri here at WagerTalk.com, guys. Thanks for stopping by. It is Week 8, the look-ahead line, and this is where Teddy and I are going to give you guys a whole lot of what our friends at the Westgate think the lines are going to be next week. And we went over last week, Teddy, some of the process behind it and the thought process as to why we look ahead, not necessarily to bet, but certainly as we mentioned it last week, you talked about it, kind of a 3-week continuum, right? And it starts by taking a look to what Week 8 has to offer us.
Yeah, I mean, no NFL game exists in a vacuum.
Right.
When you look at Team A versus Team B, there's always who did they just play and who's on deck. The look-ahead line gives us everyone who's on deck and what the look-ahead lines are for the following week. We can get we can get some ideas about if this happens this week, where is this line likely to go? If you like this team in Week 7, maybe you make another bet on them now for Week 8, et cetera, et cetera. So the goal is to give you actionable information as we break down all the look-ahead lines for next week. And you talk about that from the Westgate. We use the Westgate openers. The Westgate's been doing this for decades.
Right.
And that's why we use the Westgate openers. But in the 2020 sports betting universe, you can find these lines or close to them widely available across the country and all the states that are legal, offshore, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not just info from here in Vegas. It's info you can use wherever you are.
Knowledge is power. That equals money, Teddy, in my world. So the more that you guys have of it, the more profitable you will be, which is why we're doing this. And we're going to jump right in, Teddy, Thursday night. Keep in mind, guys, we have what the Westgate has. Now, Teddy's got his own power ratings that he is going to go ahead. And if you watched last week, you know exactly what I'm doing there. Power ratings, as far as he keeps his own numbers as well. So we're going to give you what the Westgate has. Teddy has not seen these at all. He has no idea what these are. So it'll be interesting to compare the numbers here. And we'll look at Thursday night, Atlanta at Carolina, and Carolina coming off of that loss, which a lot of people seem to think was a given last week. I wasn't sure about that. Laying 2.5 at home here, just under a field goal look-ahead line, Week 8 against the Atlanta Falcons division rivals.
Sure. So Thursday night football in general, the home teams have a fairly significant edge. So I give a bigger home field edge on Thursday night than I do for the rest of the week. I've got these two teams powered equally right now. So it's just a matter of how much of a home field edge you want to give Atlanta. For a Thursday night game, I've been going, for most of the season, I was going with a point. I'm actually up to 1.5 right now. For a Thursday night game, I might make it a 2 points home field advantage. But that's the difference between them. All that said, if the Falcons in particular, if they beat Detroit, and they're favorites against the Lions this weekend, there is a betting bandwagon that's just waiting there for Atlanta. We've seen a lot of wise guy support for the Falcons. When you look at their statistical profile right now, it's ugly on the defense side of the football, but their defense played much better than the stats showed last week. If we see another performance like that this week, Falcons would be 3 or higher, regardless. I mean, unless Carolina pulls the outright upset. But at New Orleans on Sunday. The Panthers don't win straight up, and Atlanta looks good. I would expect this line to be higher. So if you like the Falcons this week, I would hesitate laying 2.5 on the look-ahead line for next week.
Right.
Because I think you'll be getting the best of the number.
Interesting. What's the bigger surprise to you this year? How bad Atlanta started and finally had a reason to get rid of Dan Quinn, or how good Carolina has been, a team where a lot of folks were betting the under for a season win total with them?
I got the Panthers under. I'm guilty. I'm one of those guys. So if you tell me which of the two is a bigger surprise, it'd be, I really, Carolina shocked me. And I give Matt Rule an enormous amount of credit. They completely remade their defense in a season with no offseason, no preseason games. And Matt Rule has coached them up shockingly well. And their offensive line's played better than I thought that it would. So Carolina of the two is the bigger surprise for me. We've seen Atlanta have these awful starts. Right. And they had another one this year.
Yeah, all that talent, and it's 2 words, Matt Ryan there. You remember Luke Kuechly? Remember him, Ted? Remember how good he
Sure.
was? Like, most people are like, who? Luke Kuechly just retired, one of the best all-time greatest inside linebackers. Unbelievable. All right, let's go. Next game, we'll start on Sunday. We'll go, how about the Indianapolis Colts at the Detroit Lions? Now, we watched Detroit, and we kind of knew Detroit was going to put it together. This was a big question mark. If Detroit wasn't able to pull out the victory on the road, by the way, against Jacksonville, a lot of people thought that might have been the beginning of the end for their head coach, Matt Patricia. They pulled it off. I hear a lot of momentum behind Detroit this week. Look ahead is they're getting 3 at home against the Colts. What are your thoughts? What do you say, Teddy?
So I have a 3-point powering differential between the two teams. So with Detroit at home, my number will be shorter than a field goal.
Okay.
It'd be in the range of Colts minus 1.5. Indy has this incredibly impressive statistical profile on defense right now. I mean, it really is when you look at the Colts. They're outgaining opponents by 0.8 yards per play. They only allow 3.5 yards per carry on defense. I believe only the Steelers are better than that. Against the pass, they're holding opposing QBs to a 71.7 QB rating, which is extremely impressive. They rallied back from a huge deficit last week where they're down 3 touchdowns and won the game. So there's a fair bit of market support for Indy right now based on that. But you're absolutely right, Joe, when you talk about the momentum for the Lions. We just talked about the Lions are playing the Falcons this week. The winner of that game, there's going to be market support for.
Yep.
I'm confident of the following week. And Detroit, again, Atlanta has a quarterback that bettors like in Matt Ryan. Detroit has a quarterback that bettors like in Matthew Stafford. We have a team with a solid QB that has a statistical profile that's reasonable and momentum's on their side. You generally anticipate money coming that way. So I would, even if Indy looks good this week, if Detroit wins, I don't think the Colts are laying 3. And of course, Indy's not going to look good this week. They're on fire, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. Next game, and this is a big game, certainly depending on what happens this week. This is going to determine where this number goes. But how about a good old NFC North battle between the Minnesota Vikings in Lambeau, at Lambeau, taking on the Packers, who we've seen that Aaron Rodgers and that Packer team before, where they're really good, except for the teams that are very physical against them. And then usually by the third quarter, you're watching the teams, including Aaron Rodgers, just be like, let's move on to next week. I don't want to play this game anymore. Big game for Green Bay this week. A lot of people think it's a great bounce back spot for them. Minnesota, what do you say about Minnesota? I mean, it's less than a touchdown here Green Bay's given them, but what are your thoughts on this game?
So I have a 4.5-point powering difference between the two teams. So factor in the home field, we're looking at 6. You have
you're right there.
Yeah. And what are the markets at?
6.5. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not, not far. And I expect, again, with most of these, I expect to be fairly close.
Right.
If I'm off by more than 2 points, it'd be a surprise. If I'm off by more than 3 points, it'd be a big surprise.
And what do you get for divisional matchups like this? Teams that play each other twice a year, know each other along those lines. How do you factor that in, especially with no home field this year? Still the same?
Well, in general, in the divisional matchups, a lot of times you're looking at dogs and you're looking at unders.
Unders, right.
If you remember the first meeting between these two games this season, the first meeting between these two teams this season, the Vikings defense had no chance.
No clue. Yep.
Right? Green Bay picked them apart start to finish. I think Minnesota scored 4 second-half touchdowns in that game and still lost by huge margin. The last 6 drives of the game were touchdown. I remember that from going through but it really was a game where they had no chance against Aaron Rodgers and company. From a situational standpoint, you're going to have the Packers off a huge game against the Bucs and then a huge game against this week. For Minnesota, you have an awful loss and then a bye week. So situationally, there's likely to be some support for the Vikings in that regard. From a circumstantial standpoint, certainly the public's not going to fall in love with this team, but with a Vikings team that has been pretty rough so far this season. But at the same time, if the Packers lose to the Texans or fail to cover in that ball game, maybe we see some of the shine from Green Bay come off. Obviously, last week they quit, and that's not what you normally see from. We have seen that from Green Bay.
Yes.
More than, and it's worth noting that the Packers, since the start of the Matt LaFleur era, they have 5 losses. In 4 of the 5 losses, they got blown out. And the 5th one, they lost by a touchdown. Mm-hmm. So when things start to go bad for Green Bay of late, it's gone real bad.
Yep. And it's usually the more physical teams that come in there, punch them in the mouth, and then they don't have much of an answer for it. So it's going to be interesting to watch Green Bay this week, and then what happens to this line next week with Minnesota. And again, here, out of sight, out of mind, it'll be interesting to see how the public gravitates towards either the Vikings or Green Bay, depending on the result. And then we come to the New England Patriots at Orchard Park, Buffalo Bills. Bills laying 3, 2-game losing streak, and New England heading in, obviously, this week. But this is, again, week 8 for those of you that might just be joining us here. This is the look-ahead lines. New England, big game at home against the 49ers this week. But New England, an underdog. I can't even believe I'm saying those words on the road. An underdog in Buffalo. What say you, Teddy?
Yeah, I got the Bills a point better than the Patriots, and that's a healthy Patriots.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've had last week, New England literally they had 1 padded practice over a 2-week span,
and they loved it.
And after the game, Belichick's like, "Oh, by the way, we had 1 padded practice over a 2-week span. We needed to hit more." Like, yeah, okay, yeah, you do.
Yep.
If Buffalo loses this week, the markets will crash on Buffalo.
Yes.
Of course, they're 2 touchdown favorites against the Jets this week. So that'll be a one. If Buffalo loses, if both teams lose, it'll be the Bills that take the heat because that'll be a 3-game lose week. And again, the Bills, their whole schedule has been disrupted. First they play Tuesday, then they play Monday. Now they play Sunday. This will be the first time they've had a normal Sunday to Sunday since I think week 4 for Buffalo. So it works in their favor. But right now, the Patriots, I haven't seen reports yet of what New England's doing. Right. I'm looking forward to reports. But again, my number shows right now Buffalo about a point and a half better than the Patriots on a neutral field, which equates to being 2.5 or 3 at home.
About that, yeah. Interesting time for the Buffalo Bills coming back down to earth. And then, of course, we got another darling here. The Tennessee Titans at the Cincinnati Bengals. Listen, say what you want about the Bengals. Obviously, the record's not there. They haven't won in seems like since Ickey Woods was the running back there. I mean, it's been a long time. It's been a hot minute. But they're at home, and they are getting 3.5 to the currently right now undefeated Tennessee Titans. We keep waiting for the shoe to drop. A lot of folks keep waiting for the shoe to drop here to Tennessee. Maybe this week is it. This is week 8. But one thing I can say is I don't ever look at Cincinnati where I don't think they have a chance at some point in the game. And that's kudos to the coach, kudos to Joe Burrow and what the organization is doing.
And that's not something, if you go back and look at 20 years of film, Joe, the compliments for the Bengals organization, that might be the first one you give. Certainly be the first one.
Man. Yeah, listen, you don't think it's easy to screw up the first. They could have screwed up a lot of the things, but they finally let go and let old school go, and they've kind of ushered in a new millennia, hopefully, for this organization and the fans.
Yeah. So we have. What is it? Cincinnati.
3.5. 3.5 for Tennessee at Cincinnati. They're giving them 3.5.
I've got a 6-point power rating differential between the two teams, so that makes my number probably in the 4.5 range. But don't forget the spot for the Titans.
Titans, right?
Okay, Titans coming off a wild overtime win, and then they got the Steelers this week. And by the way, next week a little road trip to play this last place team.
That's correct.
The markets will react to that. So I'm not surprised that the look headline's a little bit shorter than my power rating numbers would indicate.
Cincinnati, big game too, big divisional ride. Cleveland trying to bounce back this week. So it's an interesting spot for both of those teams next week. 3.5 for Tennessee on the road. And then your boys, right in your backyard. How about the Vegas Raiders on the road taking on those very same Browns there? Browns home laying 3.5 to the Raiders. What says you in this game?
So the markets are literally, as we speak, we're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. The markets are crashing on the Raiders. There's been a COVID outbreak.
Oh, okay. There you go.
We have Damon Arnett out. We have Trent Brown, was absolutely impactful in his return from injury in the win over the Chiefs. You think Trent Brown didn't? I mean, in terms of your starting tackle on offense, it makes an enormous difference. Brown's on the COVID list. Arnett's on the COVID list. And when you have one or two, there may well easily be others. So you have to be concerned about that from a Raiders standpoint. I've slowly been chopping down on Cleveland the last couple of weeks.
You have.
And again, it all comes down to the QB position. And right now, Mayfield isn't healthy. He's not confident. And he's not good. That said, so I'm looking at my numbers, and I haven't adjusted the Raiders for the COVID stuff just because it just happened. My numbers are only showing a half-point difference between the Browns and the Raiders, which makes it about makes it a 2-point game in Cleveland, let's say. But I think you probably need to downgrade the Raiders a little bit more. And if the Browns look good this week and bounce back off of last week's debacle, I would expect this line to come 3 or higher. The look headline is spot on.
Keep an eye on it there, guys. Big week for the Browns, too. So it'll also be interesting to see what happens to this line moving forward. And then, of course, and it's sad, I just like pain, but I've been a Jet fan, unfortunately, my whole life. And they are going to be on the road in Kansas City. Yep, that's right. On the road to Kansas City, taking on those darn Chiefs. Like, you have an abacus? Because I can't count this high, Teddy. We got at 31, my friend. No, I'm sorry. My bad. I'm reading it. 21 points are what the Chiefs are laying at home, taking on the New York Jets. How high do you think these numbers can go here, Teddy, with the Jets?
So when the Patriots were undefeated, at one point they were laying 4 touchdowns.
It was 28. Yes, you're right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is the worst team in the NFL by everyone's power ratings and the best team in the NFL by everyone's power ratings. And the line is only 21. So we're not seeing the extraordinary inflation here. My power number has a 20-point difference between the Jets and the Chiefs.
Okay.
So you factor in the home field, and that's 21.5.
You're right around there. Yep, absolutely. But again, we
as
talked
a
about
Jets,
it last week. How much are you looking into the Jets, honestly? I mean, is there any hopes that the Jets could shock the world in your book? Do you even look at them, or you just put an X and move on?
Oh, I mean, you look at them. I mean, there's only right now there's 14 games a week with the buys.
Yeah,
you look at every game. It's not like Jets, I'm not playing it. You're not, and when teams are 3 touchdown dogs in the NFL, it's hard to get to the window with those teams, regardless of the value that they present. That said, this line's not moving anywhere. It's going to open 20.5, 21, 21.5. That's what it's going to be. If the money pours in on Kansas City, it'll still be in that range. The markets aren't going to. It's not going to 24.
Right.
One of those deals. Although, again, the Jets, their statistical profile is every bit as bad as their record. So nothing that's happening here is fraudulent.
That's correct.
So you were a Jets fan growing up. I was a Jets fan growing up. I grew out of it by the time I left. I left New York when I was 17 years old, and I never really moved back.
Yep.
So I like the Jets love didn't last with me, and then I started sports betting. I didn't care about any of these teams, but you want to talk horrors. Being a Jets, being a kid growing up. Okay, I saw it again. Talk about these tweets. So the 2 tweets I want to talk about. One, where there was one saying, "Give the worst advice you can give in 4 words or less," and somebody wrote Jets plus the points. Which I thought is
well done.
Yeah,
yes.
That's perfect. But growing up, so I'm growing up Mets, Jets, Knicks, and Rangers. Okay. That's my big brother. Those were his teams, and when you're the kid brother, you like so you're kind of stuck with it. I mean, I was a fan by the time I was 5. It's not like I get to pick who I'm a fan of. I got Reggie Jackson. Say, which athlete did you hate most when you were 10 years old? The answer is Reggie Jackson in the Yankees. It would have been Thurman Munson, but then I hated Munson, and then he got in the plane crash, and I wasn't allowed to hate him anymore. So then it became Reggie Jackson. Um, but it's like these memories of Walt Michaels and Richard Todd and Johnny Lamb Jones and Wesley Walker and the sack exchange and all this talent and the worst coaches and the worst results and Ken O'Brien instead of Dan Marino. It just brings back these horrible, horrible memories.
It's awful.
Yeah, being a fan was never enjoyable for me, with two exceptions: when Michigan won the national title in basketball and when they won it in football. That's the only time I ever legit. And the Mets, when the Mets won the World Series in '86, but all those were later. You know, I didn't get any of those when I was a kid.
You got nothing.
Never had
You got just broken, just tears and regret. That's all we got, man. Back in the Jets over the years, that's all we have, man.
Being a fan is the worst.
Awful.
Absolutely
awful.
Being better is so much better. Yeah.
Let's look at the Rams on the road, taking on the team down the road from me here, the Miami Dolphins. And interesting, Dolphins have already announced they're going with Tua. Of course, much to the chagrin of good old Ryan Fitzpatrick, who felt that this was his team. I think he was quoted as saying here this week. But Rams coming in, they're laying 3.5 on the road at the Dolphins. What says you with these two teams?
So I haven't adjusted my power rating for Miami yet, based on I'm just looking at the numbers, and I have Miami ranked higher than I would with Tua.
Interesting.
We like Brian Flores. There's a lot to like about this Dolphins defense. There's surprising skill position talent in Miami. Myles Gaskin, a guy he was a number one running back out of high school. It was supposed to be all that. Washington never got there, but the talent's always been there. He's getting his shot right now. But what Fitzpatrick said was absolutely true. He was blindsided.
Mm-hmm.
The veterans were blindsided. The team had bought into what they were doing.
Yep.
And now you're going with a rookie QB and saying, yeah, we're playing for the future. Miami has to be downgraded. So, again, my pure powering number for Rams Dolphins only 3.5. But my Miami number's off. And I would probably, I'm gonna probably wait until after Sunday to adjust Miami properly. But I wouldn't argue with a 3-point move down on the Dolphins. I really wouldn't.
Much.
I understand Tua is a special talent, but I also understand the mentality of the veterans.
Yes.
When you go to the rookie QB is we're playing for the future. This season's done. And from a spot perspective for the Rams coming off Monday Night Football, traveling east to heat and humidity, it's not an optimal spot for the Rams. But let's see what Tua looks like on Sunday.
Yeah, it's times like this where you're reminded this is a business, guys. Yes, it's a kid's game. It is a game, but it's also a big business. From an organizational standpoint, I get it. The Dolphins, they're not having it. They're going, here it is, guys. We're going to future. This is play it as you may. It's this kid's time. We didn't invest all of this to have him back up Fitzpatrick on on the end of the career last gasket. We ain't doing it. So good for them. You know what? I'd rather know than have to guess every week. So kudos to Brian Flores and and Greer and company in the front office. Make the call, stick with it, and move on. That's it.
The one thing I'm going to say is that Fitzpatrick does not look like Phillip Rivers.
Thank you. That's true. Yes.
Fitzpatrick does not look like a QB at the tail end of his career. He looks like a QB that has a winning season in him or two.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting to see. Also, very interesting to see here is how much longer can the Bears win ugly? Because they do it better than just about anybody in the NFL. The Saints on the road at the Bears. This is week 8, and the Bears, with one loss on the year, they're going to be getting points from the Saints. 3 points. How close are these two teams in your estimation?
That's a surprising number to me. But my powering on New Orleans hasn't been very high.
Right.
My number for this game, my strict powering number here is a pick 'em. Giving the Bears a 1.5 for home. I've got the Saints 1.5 better on a neutral field. And that may change, but I haven't seen anything. I downgraded New Orleans fairly early this season. After week 3, I gave them a good downgrade, and I haven't moved it since.
Right.
Their defense hasn't been good. And we'll see if it's better this week. They have a huge divisional matchup this week, and then they got to travel to potentially adverse weather conditions, outdoors. And the Saints have been real good on the road.
Yeah.
We talk about them being a dome team. There were the dome teams in the cold. The Saints have been great.
Yep. Very
In
profitable.
these
Yep.
spots.
Yep.
And the Bears they're just ugly. They win ugly, they lose ugly, they just play these ugly games. So you can understand why the market's a little bit higher on New Orleans than I am. But I'll say this: if the Bears beat the Rams,
That's it.
you're not seeing a 3.
Nope.
On New Orleans and Chicago.
Nope. You are not. It's going to be very interesting to see that. How about these 49ers? They got back on the winning ways thanks to the Rams there last week. They are on the road taking on the New England Patriots this week. How about next week? They're on the road again, only to a very familiar opponent, the Seattle Seahawks. Oh, yeah, Seattle's going to be laying 6.5 at home against these 49ers division rivals. What do you think?
So my number's shorter. My number's only 3.5. It's not crazy shorter, but it's a little bit shorter. I upgraded San Fran off of last week. The markets have upgraded them. We're seeing them taking a lot of money in New England. If they win that game, it'll come shorter than the 5.5. I don't think there's any question. And again, with the Seahawks, who went to the bye undefeated. Teams that go into the bye undefeated aren't necessarily good bets coming out. Just ask anyone that had the Packers last week.
Yeah.
Of course, this will be the week after, so they'll already have a game under their belts. But when it comes to, there are no rules for the NFL, but one rule that I try to apply is I don't play more than a field goal with a bad defense. And Seattle defense is a bad defense. So, so from a mental standpoint, I'm maybe not as high on the Seahawks in this game as the markets are. And certainly last year, these two teams played a couple of fun ones.
Yeah, they did.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is a fun one, too.
Yep.
It seems a little bit high. It seems a little bit rich for this bet.
It does. And again, a couple of locking out between now and next week in week 8. But speaking of bad defenses, how about them Cowboys? Dallas on the road taking on the team that I think is, I don't know what the number is right now, but if you're looking for somebody to have to win the NFC East, Philly, that was a gutted win out last week, or almost win, rather, against Baltimore there. That game could have got out of hand in a hurry. Say what you want about Wentz, say what you want. They never quit in that game and gave all they could on the road. Not much to choose from. Washington Giants, Philadelphia, and Dallas. I don't know, is Philadelphia the best of the rest at this point? Because they're home and they're laying 3 against the Cowboys team who can't stop anybody.
So let's see. And for what it's worth, I have every team in the NFC East in my bottom quartile.
Okay.
They're all bottom 8 teams.
Right.
For power rating wise. And maybe that's an overreaction because they played the NFC East. The NFC West has been feasting on the NFC East.
Correct. Yeah.
And maybe I've overreacted. But certainly, so what is this, Philly?
Philly's at home, laying 3 against Cowboys.
So my powering number has Philly at home laying 3.5 against Dallas.
Same thing. Okay.
But what we saw on Monday night from Dallas, we have to talk about this because we saw a team with a bad quarterback, a bad offensive line, a bad defense, and a bad coach. Say what you want about the Eagles. And Carson Wentz, the criticism Wentz has taken is stunning to me because there's not a quarterback in the NFL that's going to function behind the offensive line that Philly's been put out there without any receivers like Philly's put out there.
That's correct.
Say, oh, your quarterback stinks. Like, no. It's not the quarterback's fault. Now, sometimes after the QB gets beat up for game after game and throws pick after pick, you and I were talking off air about David Carr and why his career was ruined. And his career was ruined because they put him back out there every week, and he just was getting pummeled. And and you end up getting happy feet, and you end up chucking the ball into coverage. And we've seen some of that from Wentz. But I still see enough from Wentz that he's a bet on QB, in my opinion. I will not lose. I had Dallas on Monday night, and full disclosure. And you have one of those games where you just have a bad feeling about it all day, and then it comes out and it plays out just to your bad feeling. Yep. And Dalton throws. If you remember, Dalton came out and he threw. Dallas was backed up, and he threw the worst pass anyone's ever thrown ever, right to the Arizona defender, and he dropped it. And I'm like, oh, There, Dalton's got the yips out.
Whew.
No. And then
No.
Zeke Elliott fumbling in the way. Dallas played like a team that didn't want to be there.
Exactly. Yes.
And the markets are going to respond to that. If we see Philly look good against the Giants on Thursday night, the Eagles injury report continues to be as ugly as any in the league.
Right.
And the injury report will surely affect the line for next week. But again, I've got 2-point powering differential, which says that the Philly deserves to be favored by a field goal or more. If Dallas comes out and looks good this week and
turns it
beats
around,
Washington and looks good doing so, maybe it comes shorter. But the markets have officially crashed on the Dallas Cowboys after the Monday night debacle.
Yep. Took them long enough. I don't think they're going to get that back right away either. Here's an interesting one here. How about an AFC West matchup? The Chargers on their way to Denver, taking on the Drew Lock Broncos. And as somebody who had the Broncos on a money line parlay against the Patriots, watching him throw 2 interceptions in the final 5 minutes, I lost a good 10 years of my life there doing that. But Chargers, listen, the kid, fantastic. They still have Anthony Lynn as a coach, though. I'm still skeptical. This is a tough one to look at, and I guess the look-ahead market agrees. It's a pick-em. This game is a pick-em between the Broncos and the Chargers in Week 8. Teddy, what say you?
Let's take a look. I got the Chargers -1.
-1. Okay, so close. All right.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing now. So the open pick-em, but now we're seeing the money. The money's already come on the Chargers on the look-ahead line.
They did. Okay, good. Yep. Here it comes.
That being said, you want to have fun, go look at Anthony Lynn's record of 1-score games. But Zach Taylor's worse for Cincinnati, but
yes.
The Chargers have made it their business to lose 1-score games.
That's correct.
That said, and again, we have for this Sunday there could well be snow in Denver.
That's right.
So there could well be weather conditions that are likely to affect things as well. Lock. There's upside.
Yep.
But there's also down. And what we saw with those 2 picks in the last 5 minutes last week, I was with you, and I think you just can't do that with a 2 on the road. And a young QB will eventually learn those lessons.
Yes.
In theory.
Yep. I give Fangio
that said, the
credit.
Chargers are better than Denver. They deserve to be road chalk.
Yep. I give them credit there on what they're doing in Denver with what they have. Also, a Sunday night game going to be the Week 8, guys, the game that everyone I'm sure is going to be tuning in to watch. How about the Steelers on the road at the Baltimore Ravens? This number, according to the look ahead of our friends at Westgate, not quite a touchdown, laying 6 at home against their division rival Steelers. And, of course, again, this is next week. Steelers got a pretty interesting game coming up this week against the Tennessee Titans. So what do you think here with this game? Steelers at Ravens, Ravens laying 6.
It's worth noting that for most of these lines, there's a global marketplace where we're using the Westgate openers.
Right.
But when you look at the sports member or the Wager Talk live odds screen, you're going to see all kinds of books listed there, both here in Vegas and offshore. And most of them have look-ahead lines for all the games, or many of them have look-ahead lines for all the games.
Sure.
This one, the only book that I see that has a look-ahead line on Ravens Steelers is the Westgate. No one else has put one up.
Wow.
There are issues right now with Pittsburgh and their injury report. Their offensive line is we saw a huge move earlier today. We're recording on Wednesday. Earlier today, the money was pouring in on the Titans.
Yep.
Where Pittsburgh was -2, and they're +1, 1.5. So that's a fairly significant line. And that is a cluster injuries potentially on the offensive line for Pittsburgh. The loss of Devin Bush matters as well.
For the year,
from a power rating standpoint, again, I got Pittsburgh as a top 5 team right now. And my power rating number has this game 4. In Baltimore, giving the Ravens a 1.5. And honestly, if I saw Pittsburgh +4, I'd probably take the Steelers +4s. I'm not convinced that's a great number. Right. 6 to me, that's a run out and bet it number. The more we talk about it, the more I think I'm going to get on my phone when we get off and maybe hit that a little bit. That number seems live. No. I'm not calling you. It's you make your bet.
No. I'm just saying, if you're watching, like, time to pick up the phone, guys, and hit send, or pick up the phone and call at that 6.
Well, the Westgate's the only book that has it.
That's
so
it.
it's not even a broad market. And I'm surprised it's high.
Why, you're not even seeing it offshore? Interesting that the Westgate went out there as well. It's still listed too at laying 6. Where do you think this? Let's say the Steelers win. Where do you think this number goes here this week?
I think this number is too high. I would expect it to be shorter.
It was going to get shorter.
If the Steelers come in 6-0, if the Steelers come in 6-0, Baltimore's not laying 6 to Pittsburgh.
No. Opportunity knocks here, guys. That's the pick. Make the call. -6 if you know anybody in Vegas. I know a good proxy service too. +6 rather. I know a good proxy service too. If you guys, if you want, but that's another video.
Yeah, but Kelly's not getting out there to make bets for people. No, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, I know. That's all right. Cal, call us. Tampa Bay Bucs, New York Giants, Monday night game. Tampa Bay heading to MetLife. An interesting opportunity here. I believe Tom Brady's pretty good there at MetLife. His record there, 8.5 is what the Bucs will be laying on the road against the New York Giants, when you look at the numbers with the Giants, is this a team and we say it a lot, or you'll hear it a lot with teams, they're better than their record says they are. Well, your record is what you are, but I don't know with the Giants. How do you approach this team? Do you think this team is on the right track? Do you think they are better than what they've shown as far as the record goes?
So my powering number for the game has Tampa 8.5.
All right, so you're
right under the mark. So nothing different. The Giants' statistical profile, and let me pull it up. It's not awful.
It's not terrible, right?
So defensively, they've allowed 5.2 yards per play. That's above league average, better than league average. Okay. They've given up 3.7 yards per rush. Excellent. League average 4.4. Yards per play, the league average is 5.6.
Okay.
The Giants 5.2. Yards per rush, league average 4.4. Giants at 3.7. QB rating allowed hasn't been great, but it's better than both Dallas and Philly in that same division. And it's less than 10 points worse than the league average. Opposing QB rating for the Giants has been 100.8. And the league average is 94.2. But the Giants can't and haven't been able to stop losing turnover battles. The division, as a division, is -21 in turnovers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That number is
So I guess what I would say is that if the Giants can possibly find a way to stop turning the ball over, their statistical profile says this defense is okay.
It's not bad, right? Yeah.
But right now, the offense has been so bad for the G-Men that not only is the offensive numbers bad, it's making the defense worse because the defense keeps on putting them on short fields, putting them in bad spots.
Yep.
The turnovers, and again, turnovers tend to be cyclical.
Yes.
But when you have inexperienced quarterbacks and inexperienced skill position talent and weak offensive lines, it's not so cyclical. It's not so random. The Giants are likely to finish this season with a negative turnover differential. And Tampa's defense is nasty.
Yeah.
It is. That said, I ran into some numbers, and I wanted to. I don't have them in front of me. I don't want to pull them up. I ran into some numbers that were like Football Outsiders had Tampa ranked as like the #1 offense or something crazy like that.
Really?
And I'm like, the Bucs, yeah. And I'm like, that has to be a mistake. And I didn't double check it before I came on air. But I'm getting like Tampa's offense is still real dicey.
Yep.
Real dicey. And Arians' favorite play on first down is let's run for 2 yards up the middle and make sure that we're in 3rd and long so that Brady can't throw downfield. And Brady's arm strength is gone. All right.
Not there.
Yep. Tom Brady in December. I'm looking forward to betting against the Bucs in December. But this downfield passing, Tampa's a dead nuts under team, and in many ways the Giants are a dead nuts under team. There's no totals, unfortunately.
Yes.
With the that's one that but when you talk about, all right, my thought about this game is that these are two under teams playing. Points are worth more in lower scoring games than they are in higher scoring games.
Yep.
If the Giants beat Philly, this number is likely to be a little bit shorter.
Shorter than that.
Of course, they play the Eagles tomorrow night. Whereas I don't think that this line has more of a chance to come down off the look ahead than to go up. Even if Tampa looks good this week and the Giants look awful, it'll come 8.5, 9.
It's going to be
not
right
going to cross a key number. Yep. Whereas if the Giants look good, maybe it comes 7.
Total's going to be interesting in that game. Yes, absolutely. But there you got it, guys. It's a very interesting Week 8. A look ahead. Certainly want to encourage you guys. Make sure you're visiting Teddy over at his page at sportsmemo.com. Teddy will have you beginning right off the bat here, guys. He's got plays. You got plays this weekend, right? I mean, you're already loaded, locked and loaded, and ready to rock and roll, correct?
Normally I would be. This week, I don't have a single, as we're recording on Wednesday, I don't have a single play for the weekend lock.
Wow.
There was, over the last week and a half, there's been a little bit too much you're trying to divide, you're trying to balance line value. And right now, information is, in my mind, a little bit more important. If I lose a half point, I got to lose a half point. I don't want to be giving clients something on Wednesday and, oh, by the way, everyone just got COVID. Oops.
Love it.
So we're taking the time. We'll have plays posted on Thursday. We'll have the full card posted on Friday. But I'm not trying to post. I mean, it's not about getting an extra half point right now. It's about making sure you're not putting money on a team that's effed up.
Amen to that. Sportsmemo.com, guys. Make sure you get there. Check his page out all week. Make sure you subscribe here to the YouTube channel at Wager Talk. Teddy and I will be back again next week, right around this time, getting you ready for Week 9. In the meantime, we got to get through Week 7. We plan on doing so. So, Teddy, always a pleasure, my friend. Good luck to you this week, and we'll do it again here soon enough.
Cheers. So, just for your info, this hair was all dark when I started betting on sports, dude. Talk about years off your life going bald. Maybe gray in a hurry. Cheers, guys. Have a great week.
Good luck, guys. We'll talk to you again next week. Look ahead.